Trixie's Forest Retreat. By Crow's Crow. Chapter 121. Racist. Rarity had taken a nasty fall, but fortunately the staff appeared to know how to deal with her. A little bit too well, actually. The ice pack aloe brought had a convenient hole in it for Rarity's horn, and Lotus Blossom had procured a stretcher at some point when Trixie wasn't looking. They'd taken the unconscious unicorn out of the sauna for some fresh air to help her recuperate. The one thing Trixie had most trouble wrapping her mind around was how come every pony else appeared to be about this whole thing. Rarity was hurt. Didn't they care? Fortunately, Fluttershy had caught on to Trixie's distress, and she had taken the time to explain the fashion mare's quirks. "So, this is normal?" Trixie asked incredulously, for the third time. Fluttershy nodded, again. "Crazy, all of you," Trixie muttered while she laid back down on the wooden bench of the sauna. At least she was already in the perfect place to let that newfound tension melt away. Although the Spaponies were both gone, a little spark of magic brought the ladle to life, which easily poured another splash of water onto the hot stones. About to make a comment on the do-it-yourself spa, Trixie hushed when she noticed Fluttershy was fidgeting with her hooves. It wasn't something Trixie had known originally. But she quickly caught on to the fact that it meant Fluttershy had something she wanted to say. A vague feeling of déjà vu crept over Trixie while she resolved to quietly sit and wait until Fluttershy felt comfortable enough to speak. After a moment of relative silence, during which only some muffled conversation regarding ice water could be heard outside, Fluttershy took a deep breath. Trixie. Is it okay if I ask you something? Maybe not so nice. I'm sorry." Trixie perked up, surprised. "You have Trixie's curiosity, go on." Avoiding eye contact, Fluttershy ran a hoof stiffly through her hair as though she was trying to play this off as a casual thing. "Well, how come you, do you only like some ponies? More than others, I mean." After a brief moment of bafflement, Trixie smiled. She knew what was going on here. Scooting toward Fluttershy, she wrapped her ferrug around the soft mare and pulled her close. "Ow, Fluttershy, Trixie's so sorry." Fluttershy tensed up as Trixie suddenly pulled her in. She gave Trixie an uncertain look. "You are?" Fluttershy looked immensely relieved. "Oh, thank goodness. I was worried." "It's Trixie's fault." She eased up on the hug and with a flicker of magic brushed Fluttershy's mane out of her face, granting an unfettered view of the cute, if somewhat sweaty, visage. Trixie's eyes traveled down to Fluttershy's lips. They looked so soft and inviting. Trixie didn't mean to be so distant. With a struggle, she resisted the urge to claim them, and met Fluttershy's eyes again. "It's just Trixie doesn't want to disappoint you." Blinking in confusion, Fluttershy asked. I don't really understand." "What do you mean?" "Well, you are such a wonderful pony. So kind and loving. Trixie really wants to show you how amazing you are." Words failed to properly describe how she felt about Fluttershy, but they would have to do for now. It was so easy to praise the sweet creature, but equally as hard to force herself to go on. Trixie didn't like to admit she had faults, especially not to a pony she desperately needed to be impressive for. Still, she pressed on. "But, you are so delicate, and Trixie feels as though you'd shatter if she comes on too strong. It's simple with Dashi, Trixie can read her pretty well, but Trixie doesn't know how to tell what you are ready for or what you want. What if she does something wrong and pushes you too far again? Still." Trixie didn't realize you'd feel this left out if Trixie was too hesitant. Although Fluttershy's face was as red as a tomato, she looked no less confused as she stammered, That is, whoa, but it's not, what I wanted to I mean. What about Aloe and Lotus Blossom?" Now it was Trixie's turn to be confused. What did those two have to do with anything? Sure, they were somewhat above average in looks, but Fluttershy couldn't possibly be so insecure that she'd think the great and powerful Trixie would lower her standards that much. Huh? Is that what you were worried about? There's no reason to be jealous of them. Trixie's not even interested in them. They're only Earth ponies. Fluttershy stammered. Jealous? But, what? Only Earth. That part. I mean. Her eyes were wide as though she had just seen a ghost. Perhaps she had, because she had just as much trouble formulating a sentence. You, they, why? Trixie let go of Fluttershy to give her some air. She looked like she needed it. Though exactly why was lost on Trixie. Her chest tightened as she considered that she might have done something wrong by admitting she needed more to go on from Fluttershy. Are you mad at Trixie? Yes. No. A little. Oh, I don't know. Fluttershy held her hooves to her head, like she hoped to stop it from spinning. Why do you, hate Earth ponies? What? Trixie quirked a brow. That's the most ridiculous thing Trixie has ever heard. Trixie does not hate Earth ponies at all. Oh. You don't? Of course not. I'm sorry. Trixie pities them. What? You know, Trixie said while she pointed at her horn. They can't do magic. It's sad. And why, Don't you feel the same way about Pegasi? Because you actually have something to make up for it. What? Wings. You have wings. Trixie's seen you use them to pick up cups and other things like a unicorn uses levitation. You can fly as well. What do Earth ponies get? Nothing. They are unicorns without horns. But that doesn't make it right though for you to. Trixie doesn't treat them badly, Fluttershy. She pities them a little is all. It's why she always makes sure to hold back against them. You saw how dizzy and sick Trixie made Dashy in her show. Yes. All she did was tie up Applejack. If anything, they should appreciate the efforts Trixie goes through to not hurt them. Trixie wore a proud smile as she described how nice she'd actually been. Life is cruel enough without magic. Trixie doesn't wish to add to it, more than needed. Fluttershy's face held a look somewhere between disbelief and astonishment. I can't use magic either. Oh. Trixie quickly reiterated. No. But you have wings. Remember? That's at least a step up. But, they have to use their hooves and mouth for absolutely everything. She smiled as she finished clarifying. However, Fluttershy wasn't smiling. She looked almost pained as she spoke. So, Pegasi are at least a step up. But, it's still a step below unicorns, right? I remember you told Dash once that Pegasi start off, handicapped. Was that what you meant? Yes, exactly. Trixie nodded. See? It's nothing mean. But it is mean. Fluttershy pleaded. Why is it mean when Trixie says she's better than a Pegasus, but it's okay for you to say you are better than an Earth pony? Trixie had to admit the difference might have been less obvious than between a flightless Earth pony and a Pegasi, but she still felt confident she could make the case magic was better than wings. I don't say that. I'm not better than any pony. Fluttershy hastily cried out and waved her hooves as if she tried to physically throw the notion away. No pony is better than any pony else. What are you talking about? Of course some ponies are better than others. Trixie is right here. She rested a hoof on her chest while she adopted an almost regal pose. The great and powerful Trixie is better than any pony. She's already demonstrated a little bit of that during her show, remember? Completely aghast, Fluttershy could only stare at Trixie. But starting to catch on to the frankly frigid mood in the sauna, Trixie tried to smooth things over. Look, do we really have to talk about this? Trixie would much rather get back to what we were talking about before. You know, about us, Trixie coaxed in a sweet voice. It was clear that she was making Fluttershy upset, and Trixie didn't care about this argument anyway. About us? Fluttershy blinked. Yes, you know, Trixie pressed her hooves together nervously, wishing she didn't have to go through this a second time, but it was too important to not bring it up again. You never answered, Trixie. What do you, how far is okay, Trixie means. Trixie, this is important. Trixie nodded wordlessly. Her stupid stomach did backflips while she waited. Just a little something to go on would set her mind at ease. Fiddling with her hooves a little, Fluttershy nervously glanced over to the door before continuing. You were going to talk with Mare, but, you know she is an earth pony. She won't like you if you talk like that. You are still on this? Trixie asked with a scowl. Stop ignoring Trixie. Fluttershy's eyes widened and locked onto Trixie's as her ears clamped to her skull. I'm not. I don't mean to, but you're not taking this seriously. Trixie is the one not taking it seriously? Trixie yelled, but as soon as she saw Fluttershy flinch, she bit down on her hoof to shut herself up. As frustrated as she was with Fluttershy, seeing her react like that felt as though someone punched Trixie in the stomach. At that moment, the spa door opened, and with a gust of cool air came Rarity. So sorry, girls. I just needed some air. Then I figured I could make some arrangements while I had a chance to talk to Lotus and... She froze as she looked at Trixie and Fluttershy. Is everything alright in here? Just perfect. Trixie couldn't stand to be in this room anymore. She had to get out. Trixie is going to get some air too, she said while passing Rarity, then quickly closed the door behind her to avoid any further questions. Compared to the sauna, it was practically cold out here in the hallway. Hastily, Trixie trotted away from the door. Once she felt she was far enough away, she leaned against the nearest wall. The cool stone felt good against her damp fur. If she needed to cool her head, she may as well literally do it. She smirked a little at the thought while she rested her head on the wall. Her eyes closed while she thought back on just what went wrong. Why were they fighting? Trixie didn't do anything. She thought bitterly. This wasn't how Trixie pictured today going. She'd been nice to Rarity, wasn't Fluttershy supposed to like that? Okay, so Rarity fainted at the end, but that was apparently a common thing. Surely Trixie wasn't being blamed for that? Fluttershy was so difficult to read. Trixie couldn't tell how to impress her, or what she wanted. Well, apparently she wanted to talk about earth ponies. Trixie thought she had explained herself well enough. Of course earth ponies were not as good as the rest. So why did Fluttershy have to keep harping on that, instead of listening to Trixie when she was trying so hard to be open with her? Trixie sighed and turned slightly to roll her forehead over to a fresh, cool patch of wall. It helped. An unconvincing cough stirred Trixie out of her thoughts. She half opened one eye to find the two spa ponies standing nearby. Each of them apparently carrying laundry. Perhaps it was their fault. If they hadn't been earth ponies, the conversation never would have gotten so off track. Trixie glared at the pair. What are you looking at? Nothing, miss, answered Lotus Blossom with a smile. Aloe, however, did not even wear her fake smile. Lotus used one hoof to point to the sauna, and with the same motion she also conveniently barred Aloe's way. Was it too dry inside? I apologize, I'm on my way right now. Well, it certainly wasn't too hot. Trixie smirked a little, but obviously neither of them would get the joke. With a wave, she dismissed them. Trixie will be along shortly. Very well, miss. In the meantime, this is for you. Lotus Blossom grabbed the pile of laundry resting on her back. With her teeth, of course. Upon closer inspection, it was not just a random pile of laundry. After Lotus let it unfurl, she was holding out a bathrobe for Trixie. Ah, yes. Trixie took the bathrobe from Lotus. With the use of magic, obviously. It was no trouble at all to slip into it, and it actually was rather comfy. For one thing, it did wonders in keeping the comparatively cold air at bay, which had gradually gone from refreshing to chilling the longer she was out here. Just as the pair were about to move on, Trixie stopped them. Wait. Trixie has a question. Yes, miss? Lotus Blossom turned to face her again. Aloe paused as well. Trixie looked the pair over. Clearly, one of them was displeased, but then, Trixie supposed that dragging an unconscious drama queen through the spa would put a dent into any pony's mood. However, it wasn't important how they felt. Trixie was much more preoccupied with checking if she'd done something wrong. Has Trixie said anything that was false to you? Lotus Blossom and Aloe looked at one another for a moment. A meaningful couple of expressions were exchanged between them. After a second, Lotus shook her head. No, miss. Not as such. Trixie smiled. She knew it. Fluttershy was just worrying over nothing. As Trixie expected. Aloe turned to Lotus Blossom and scowled. Oh, sure. We're but mere earth ponies, aren't we, Lotus? Aloe, hush. I'm sure she meant nothing by it, Lotus hissed at the more irate spa pony. The next moment, she wore her smile again. While Trixie observed the pair, she was struck by the realization that she might actually like Aloe better. At least she could tell what that mare was feeling, while Lotus Blossom only showed what she wanted Trixie to see. Trixie pointed at Aloe. You, explain. Ignoring a pleading look by Lotus, Aloe appeared to actually grow 2 sizes as she received express permission to voice her opinion from a customer. Oh. I'd be happy to. Aloe. Oh, calm down, I'll be nice. Aloe sighed as though she was asked to settle for a bowl of ice cream instead of a barrel. Besides, I can't exactly stay mad if she's here asking us about it, can I? Trixie got the sneaking suspicion this might have been something of a bad idea. Basically, when you say things like, I can't believe an Earth pony did that. It sounds like you mean you have lower expectations of Earth ponies than you do of Pegasus or unicorns. Do you understand? Of course. Trixie nodded. Go on. Aloe blinked. What? Talking a little slower, Trixie repeated. Trixie understands it sounds that way. Where are you going with this? That is to say. Aloe stammered, and looked to Lotus Blossom for help. Lotus Blossom chimed in. She means language like that implies Earth ponies are lesser than the other pony tribes. Some ponies may take exception to that kind of thing. Oh, now it all makes sense. You don't like it, and she doesn't want to hurt your feelings. Trixie chuckled. It was so obvious in hindsight. Fluttershy didn't like to see any pony upset, so naturally she would be opposed to Trixie saying something that reminded Earth ponies of their misfortune. Yes, exactly, said Aloe, actually smiling at Trixie again. I'm so sorry, Miss Trixie. I was wrong about you. After all the rumors going around, I just assumed you were doing it on purpose. I shouldn't have kept quiet. As she spoke the last line, she threw an impish smug at Lotus Blossom. Perhaps it is the same for Pegasus. That's why Fluttershy was upset. Lotus Blossom groaned. Fine, I was wrong. This time. Do not forget she asked you for your opinion. You are still not to go give Roselark a piece of your mind, unless she asks for it. All the pieces were falling into place for Trixie. Now all she had to do was figure out how to fix it. Trixie supposed that if Fluttershy liked it better if she didn't say things like that around her, she could do that. Smiling, Trixie trotted back to the sauna, leaving Aloe and Lotus Blossom behind as they squabbled over something banal. Just before Trixie wanted to open the door to the sauna, she heard a sound. It was a bit like Fluttershy's voice. Though Trixie couldn't quite make out what she was saying, she was fairly sure she had caught the word Trixie in there somewhere. It's not really eavesdropping if it is about Trixie, Is it? A quick look behind her showed that Aloe and Lotus Blossom were still nowhere near done. Lotus Blossom actually had turned red in the face by this point. What do you mean you talked to him about it? Yeah. Trixie had a few moments. Magic was such a wonderful thing. It allowed for so much utility. Such as when she found herself on stage with a bit more of a crowd than she was used to, a simple sound amplifying spell the size of a bit, placed strategically before her mouth, would ensure even the peanut gallery could enjoy the sweet sound of her voice. Conveniently, placing one of those same small fields on the door in reverse proved perfect for listening in. I don't know. Trixie looked really mad at me. Well, you were having a fight, darling. It is expected. But, I don't want to fight with her. Hearing that, Trixie felt a little warmer. Of course she doesn't. Even so, you can't apologize for disagreeing with her. She was in the wrong, not you. Honestly, Fluttershy, I don't think you should even bother. It sounds like she's done nothing but be nasty to every pony. Trixie made a mental note to put Rarity on her list, and to find some way to mess with Rarity's mane again at the earliest opportunity. It wasn't hard for Trixie to picture the two ponies inside. Rarity was probably sprawled out like some kind of queen, dispensing wisdom to a curled-up Fluttershy. Oh, but... that's not true. She's really trying to be nice. I mean, she is. Really. It was a rough start. She really doesn't mean it. Fluttershy, please, don't take this the wrong way, but are you sure you haven't hit your head too? I just talked with her, and the hostility boiling just underneath the surface of that mare is palpable. Don't tell me you didn't notice she made no effort to return the favor when I apologized to her. She is not sorry. Not for any of it. What did she have to apologize for? And, so what if she didn't really like Rarity? Acting as if she did had to count for something. It certainly did for Fluttershy. She was praising Trixie for trying. Maybe this little spat will finally motivate her to leave and stop taking advantage of you. She's been mooching off of you for a month. Trixie was beginning to suspect that Rarity didn't really want her around any longer than strictly necessary. Trixie was okay with this if it only involved Rarity, but it was quite clear that the unicorn, despite acting somewhat civil earlier, wanted Trixie gone from Ponyville entirely. It figures. She acts forgiving when Trixie is in front of her, but, when Trixie's back is turned, tries to poison Fluttershy against her. Has she been saying the same things to Dashie? Trixie glared at the door. She almost never heard Dash talk about Rarity. Was it because of this? Of course Dash wouldn't mention her then. She would get that little fashion diva for this. But, not right now. She sighed, releasing some of the tension in her muscles. This was something she would have to deal with later. Fluttershy would not be happy if she went off on Rarity in front of her. Especially with their fight earlier. Don't worry, Fluttershy. Trixie won't let anybody try to take her away from both of you. Twilight already tried and failed. Trixie'll be damned if she lets some prissy unicorn succeed. Trixie gritted her teeth, deciding to get in there before more damage was done. She already had one hoof on the door, and was just about to throw it open, when Fluttershy suddenly spoke up. So she's not. She was just really hurt before, but now she's been helping around the house, a lot. I never even asked her to, she just wanted to do something nice, I mean, for me. And, the animals like her too, or, well, they do now that she can remember who eats what. Angel even stopped trying to set her on fire. I'm sorry, what? And now that her magic is recovering, she's so good at dealing out the food it barely takes 5 minutes. At midnight in shining armor. Trixie smiled, and her hoof slipped off the doorknob. She wouldn't mind hearing a little more of this. Don't stop now. Well, pardon me for doubting you, darling. But, if that is true, why do you look less than enthused? Rarity gasped. Ah. She's not feeding the small animals to the big ones, is she? Oh. No, no. It's nothing like that. It's nothing, just... I miss it. Trixie blinked. Huh? Why, whatever do you mean? Well... Trixie's doing her best to finish our chores quickly, and I don't want to hurt her feelings, but... I don't want them to be over quickly. It's not just a chore that needs doing, I like doing it. To just take my time and chat with my animal friends while I'm taking care of them. Ah, I understand. You've tried to tell her, but she won't li. A sudden tap on her shoulder made Trixie drop the spell in fright. Gah. Don't sneak up on Trixie like that, she said while spinning around. Before her stood Lotus Blossom, wearing her trademark smile. So sorry, Miss Trixie. It's just that I need to be in there right now. She motioned to the door that Trixie was blocking. Didn't she catch Trixie? Ah. Yes. Trixie hastily stepped aside. After you, Miss Trixie. The implication was clear. Lotus Blossom knew what Trixie had been up to, and although she didn't say anything about it directly, this was about as obvious a cease and desist as one could get. Regaining her composure, Trixie returned the smile and entered the sauna, shortly followed by Lotus Blossom. Trixie supposed she ought to say something modest to announce her arrival. Fear not. Trixie has returned. Chapter 122. Retrieve. Homework, the bane of every student. Trixie chewed on the end of her pencil while she stared up at the dull textbook floating above her bed. How magic could be this boring was well and truly beyond her. What kind of pony found themselves with the power to alter the fabric of reality, and then decided the best course of action was to figure out 7 different ways to reheat a piece of toast? All of which also made the toast inedible. Perhaps a better question was what kind of pony would put it in a textbook. Only a cruel, sadistic pony for sure. Trixie nodded. Yes, she was going to add whoever had done this to our list. Oh, yes. She had a list now. Any pony on that list would rue the day they'd crossed her. Someday anyway. After examining the cover, she put the textbook down and floated her notepad up to her face. She paused only to consider the exact place to add this person. A few quick squiggles with the pencil on her lips, and she was done. Trixie admired her work. Trixie's great and powerful revenge list. Strict Silence, Professor Starlight, Kratos, and his little ninja too. Trixie won anyway. Moonrock, Stotchy Jotter, Guy that wrote Magic 4 Falls Volume 2. Shiny Pebble. Trixie tripped over it on the way to school. Okay, maybe the list was growing a little fast, and maybe some would say it wasn't exactly healthy to plot the downfall of half a dozen ponies, let alone inanimate objects, but it made her feel better, so what was the harm? This way, whenever some pony angered her, she could simply write the name down and then no longer need to think about them, without running the risk of forgetting she was mad at them. It had been a little over a week since she'd been released from detention. Much of said week was spent stewing and raving, and it wasn't until she'd hit upon the idea of making that list that she calmed down a little. She knew it didn't really make sense, but it felt like she was doing something about it. Like she was taking control of the situation when she wrote it down like that. Trixie. Her mother called from the kitchen. I forgot to buy butter. Can you go on an errand for me? Well, her homework wasn't going anywhere and any distraction was a welcome one. Trixie dropped the notebook on her bed and sat up. Okay, Mom. She unceremoniously ditched her textbook and went to grab her hat, only to find it wasn't there. Oh, right. Flitter still has it. So far Trixie had not asked about her hat and Flitter hadn't mentioned it, but she was beginning to worry. Flitter wouldn't be too cowardly to tell her if anything had happened to it, right? Trixie really hoped Flitter hadn't lost it. On her way out, Trixie swung by the kitchen to collect the grocery bag and some bits to fund her little expedition. In the kitchen, Sly Night Sky had already put the bag and bits on the table. She was tending to the stove, making what smelled like spaghetti. "Ah, there you are, sweetie. You know where to go, right?" Trixie nodded. "Yep. It's the place you say the health inspector must get their new horseshoes from." She didn't really get how that worked, since she was pretty sure the dairy shop didn't sell any horseshoes, but adults did a lot of things that didn't make any sense. Her mom's face reddened. Maybe you shouldn't mention that while you're there, okay?" Sly chuckled awkwardly. "Well, get going. Stores close in half an hour." With a fluid motion of her wing she pushed Trixie along. Okay. Trixie's going. The trip to the market wouldn't be all that long, so long as Trixie kept a good pace. With a little bit of luck, she might even be able to leverage this errand to get out of cleaning later. Not that it was a lot of work, not anymore anyway. Back when they still lived in St. Peter, who had a house that was a pain to clean. But, with only 4 rooms in total, the Hoofington house was way easier, and it didn't even have a second floor to worry about. Trixie came to a sudden halt. Her eyes narrowed as she came face to face with an old enemy. There, in the middle of the road, defiantly staring at her was the shiny pebble. Aha! Found it. After giving the pebble a dirty look for a while, Trixie noticed passers-by were starting to stare at her. With an unconvincing cough, Trixie tried to look as normal as possible while she picked up the pebble and dropped it into the grocery bag. Maybe she'll have her showdown later, when there are less witnesses. "That'll be 5 bits," said the cream-colored, earth polymer behind the counter. Trixie tilted her head. "You mean 2 bits?" Her mom had only given her 2, so clearly that was how much butter was supposed to cost. Maybe the sales pony thought she could pull a fast one on a little filly. Then she didn't know the great and powerful Trixie. The contested packet of butter sat on the counter between them. "Nope, 5. The earth polymer repeated and blew a black strand of hair out of her face. "This is traditionally made, high-quality, organic butter." Oh, Trixie looked at the packet. Perhaps she had gotten the wrong kind. Where is the 2-bit butter then? It's all 5 bits, or more. That can't be right. Look. Trixie scanned the cashier's name tag, then groaned internally. Buttercup, really? Anyway, Trixie isn't paying 5 bits for butter. Well, you're welcome to try the next town over. Buttercup chuckled. You'd be surprised how few ponies run a dairy store around a unicorn town. Trixie will pay 20 bits, or nothing. Not that I'm going to stop you from paying 20 bits if you want. But, I think you meant 2 bits. Buttercup scratched her head. You're not too familiar with haggling, are you? No haggling, a wager. Trixie meant what she said. 20 or nothing. She smiled smugly up at the mare. How do 3-to-1 odds in your favor sound? Buttercup leaned over the counter as she inspected the little filly with a skeptical, green-eyed stare. Look, I'm not going to gamble with a filly just to. She paused as her eyes caught sight of Trixie's grocery bag. She gave a hard look, but when Trixie didn't back down, her face adopted a calculating expression. Give me a minute. It was easy to guess what Buttercup was thinking. She was practically counting on her hooves. She stood to lose 5 bits, or make 4 times as much. All she had to do was calculate her odds and consider if she liked them. Trixie waited patiently for the earth pony to finish. She already knew the outcome herself. If one stood to quadruple one's money, a simple 1 in 4, or 25%, chance to win was already fair. The offered wager was 2 in 3, or 66%. In short, the odds were over twice as good as they should be for the clerk. Apparently mental arithmetic was not sufficient, as Buttercup produced a sketch pad and scribbled on it with a pencil for a moment before she read it over again slowly. Okay. Buttercup nodded and turned her attention back to Trixie. Just so you're clear, if you refuse to pay after this, or raise a ruckus, I'm not selling anything to you ever again. She pointed at the grocery bag, or your mother. Don't think I didn't recognize that bag. Now, are you sure you wouldn't rather just pay the bits? It's an awful big gamble for such a little filly. Well, Trixie could walk away now and retrieve the 3 bits she was short from home, then run all the way back and possibly find it closed. Or, she could keep going and risk being 18 bits short, and then find a new place to buy dairy products from in the future. Her mom would kill her. The great and powerful Trixie does not gamble, she said, and watched as the mare behind the counter smirked and reached out a hoof to pull the butter back. With a dramatic flair, Trixie reared up on her hind legs, bringing her on eye level with the mare. Trixie always wins. Looking utterly unimpressed, Buttercup sighed but left the butter where it was. Is that so? I do hope the school knew what they were doing when they stopped teaching statistics, but who am I to judge? All right, fine, how do you want to do this? Have you got a die on you? Please, Trixie does not need something so mundane. Besides, who is to say the die is not weighted? Trixie rested on hoof on the counter to help keep her balance while she was standing up. As nice as she felt it looked, it was darn difficult to keep upright. Rather, can Trixie borrow that? She pointed at the pencil and sketch pad. No magic, Buttercup stated firmly while she pushed the 2 items over to Trixie. If I see as much as a spark, I'll assume you're cheating. Trixie frowned. The great and truthful Trixie had no intention of using her magic like that, but fine. She tore a piece from the notebook with her teeth and scribbled something on it, then folded the note several times. With a smile, she pushed the crumpled note into the middle of the countertop. Keep an eye on that. Looking puzzled, Buttercup nodded. I see it. Now what? Trixie dropped back down on all fours for a moment and stuck her hooves in the grocery bag. It was so stupid she couldn't use her levitation for this. She pulled out one of the bits and the pebble from the road, placing both down on the counter, next to the butter. The game is simple. Trixie has guessed one of these 3 items. There is a 1 in 3 chance that she will be correct. Now, you select 2 and we'll play. Buttercup looked at the butter, pebble, and bit. Her eyes also periodically flicked at Trixie's horn, but it remained unlit. Finally, she sat down and stroked her chin while she watched Trixie. I see. I thought it was strange you take such bad odds. You think you have better odds than 1 in 3 because you figure that you can predict what I, the greedy store clerk, will choose, do you? Trixie smiled. Perhaps. Are you ready to choose? Buttercup held up a hoof as she looked down at the objects again. No, give me a minute. It's too simple. You're trying to trick me. Perhaps, Trixie merely repeated while she rested her hooves on the edge of the counter. It was almost too simple. Trixie didn't truly have to do anything while she watched Buttercup strain her mind. It was easy to imagine that a greedy person would pick the butter and the bit, leaving the worthless rock. The simple counter would be to pick different, but Buttercup had to have realized by now that Trixie might have figured the same thing, and actually guessed with it in mind. That kind of thinking very quickly spiraled into a never-ending series of if she knows that I know that she knows that I know that she knows. Meanwhile, Trixie enjoyed the obvious mental struggle Buttercup was going through. One might have thought she'd been in suspense herself, but nothing could be further from the truth. Buttercup finally made up her mind. Rock and butter. Are you sure? Trixie's smile broadened. No, wait. Buttercup looked down again then quickly up. Wait, yes. I'm not letting you pull something so obvious. Wait. And just like that, the spiral began anew. This time factoring in a Phyllis smile that may or may not have meant something. Trixie regretted not bringing anything to read for this. On the other hoof, if she had her textbook she'd be a lot more bored than she was now. Yes. Rock and butter. I'm not changing it," Buttercup said, confidently. "Okay," Trixie said and reached over the counter to push her pebble and the butter off to the side, leaving just the crumpled piece of paper and the lone bit between them. "Now what?" "Now Trixie will open the paper." She reached for it, but Buttercup intercepted her. With her left hoof, she knocked Trixie's away while simultaneously grabbing the wad of paper with the other. "No." The look of shock and surprise on Trixie's face brought a grin to Buttercup's. "Weren't expecting that, were you?" "Hey! Wait!" Trixie cried while she reached out for the paper, but was easily held at hoof's length by Buttercup. Holding Trixie at bay, Buttercup kept one eye on Trixie's horn and the other on the unfurling the piece of paper. "Aha! Bet I knew it. Thought you see." "Wait, what?" Still on the counter between them, lay the predicted, lonesome bit. Buttercup gaped as she read the paper again, then looked down at the bit again. But why were you struggling then?" Smiling smugly, Trixie straightened out her chest fur. Trixie just really wanted to see the look on your face. Trixie swept her hoof across the counter, sweeping the pebble, butter, and bit into the waiting grocery bag. Buttercup turned red in the face with embarrassment and anger. You little..." "Oh, brighten up, Buttercup," came an unfamiliar female voice from behind Trixie. A lanky Pegasus with a red mane and light orange fur flew overhead and landed behind the counter, wrapping a wing around Buttercup, who turned even redder. "Aren't you supposed to only charge 2 bits anyway? I keep telling you that unicorn tax is not okay." "So shut up, Blossom." She tried to push the Pegasus away, but she didn't appear to be trying hard enough to actually break free. "She's the one that started it." Trixie huffed. "You hit Trixie," she said while holding up her grievously injured left foreleg. It was revenge. While she spoke, she levitated the grocery bag and prepared to make her escape before Buttercup broke free. "She's got you there, you know." Blossom grinned and just wrapped her forelegs around her captive to secure her even more. "Besides, don't you know who that is?" she asked while pointing her remaining free wing at Trixie. "That one's little Flitter's friend, right?" "Oh?" Buttercup relaxed and actually leaned back against Blossom as she looked at Trixie again. "You know Flitter?" Already halfway to the door, Trixie stopped and turned around. "Flitter Bouquet?" Trixie replied, puzzled. Yes. Why, do you know her?" "Of course we do, she's one of ours." Blossom laughed and took to the air again, causing Buttercup to tumble over backward with a cry as her support suddenly vanished. This time, she landed beside Trixie. "Why don't you come have dinner sometime? So the rest of us can finally see you. You're all she's been going on about, great and powerful Trixie." "Piff. Flitter almost never talks." Buttercup chimed in from the back as she got her hooves under her again. "I meant relatively." Blossom called over her shoulder. Her attention quickly returned to Trixie. "So, anyway, what do you think? Flitter would like it, I'm sure." Trixie felt as though something was going on she wasn't catching on to, but she nodded all the same. "Sounds good to Trixie. Are you sure it's okay?" "Oh, yes, I'm positive. Not right now, of course. I'm sure you have dinner waiting on you at home already. We'll discuss a good time, and then Flitter can officially invite you at school once we've worked out the details, all right?" "All right." Blossom had wandered off back to the counter already and quickly claimed the pencil and sketch pad to write it all out on. Rolling her eyes, Buttercup leaned on a counter as she looked at Trixie past the cheerful Pegasus. "Blossom, if you're going to go nuts anyway and be a pain to every pony, maybe you should think about inviting her family too. Misery loves company." "Oh. Good idea." Blossom whirled back around on Trixie and smiled brightly. "You're all invited. You should probably bring that up at home yourself, see if they would like to come. Just so I have some idea of what to plan for. How many ponies are there?" "2. Mom and Trixie." Now that Trixie thought about it, She should probably hurry back home or dinner was going to be cold. Oh. Blossom's smile faltered briefly before she noted it down on the pad. Afterwards her smile had returned. Well, the two of you are more than welcome then. Pass on the... I mean, forward the invitation to your mother, okay? Trixie will. Thanks, see you then. Trixie waved then ran toward the door. Wait. Buttercup called out just as Trixie was on the threshold. How did you know what I'd pick? Was it just luck? Without slowing down, Trixie looked over her shoulder, flashing a magnificent smile. It was easy. Hasn't anyone told you before? She answered just before moving out of sight. Never gamble with a magician. With a steely gaze, Sly Night Sky stared her daughter down across the dinner table after she listened to Trixie tell the story. So, you were disrespectful to an adult, gambled, cheated, and refused to explain yourself? Well, when you put it like that. Trixie scratched her neck awkwardly. She put on her best smile. But, Trixie got the butter. And an invitation, so she couldn't have been that mad. I'm disappointed in you, Trixie. Her mom shook her head. That's only because you got lucky and they happened to be your friend Flitters. They happened to know her. If it wasn't for the do you know what could have happened? You were surrounded without knowing it, and you had no exit plan at all. Looking down at her hooves, Trixie's chest ached. She hated letting her mom down. The rest of the lecture was not quite right though. Blinking slowly, Trixie met her mother's eyes. Mom? What else did Trixie do wrong? Tapping a hoof to her chin, Sly looked thoughtful. Well, for starters you had no way of ensuring that this Buttercup character would not deny having made any kind of wager after you'd won. Between some little filly and a store clerk, who is going to be believed? You should at least have had some pony near enough to overhear the wager being made. She shot Trixie a mischievous grin. Ideally, you could even have a stooge back you up. If it looks like the crowd is on your side you usually get your way. Stooge. Trixie knew that term. It stood for an audience member that was secretly a partner of the magician on stage. They were good for providing a seemingly unbiased perspective, while in reality they merely acted in accordance with the magician's wishes. What else? Trixie asked. It was rare for her mother to wear an expression like that, as though she were the cat that ate the canary. Well, the most important thing is to always be aware of your surroundings. Her mom grabbed a spoon and drew a rough shape of the store in Trixie's mashed potatoes. From the counter you'd have to keep an eye on what routes are available to you. Do you see how there are 3 exit points? The front door, the back door, and the window. In order of most desirable. Trixie nodded, though she hadn't noticed the back door while she was there. It made sense that Buttercup had some way to get to her stock without having to walk around from the outside. They blocked both doors, so... You are saying Trixie should have dived through a window? No. Sly chuckled and got up from her seat while she drew a crude map of the street in her own potatoes and pushed her plate toward Trixie. She moved over to Trixie's side of the table, wings outstretched in excitement as she moved. She stood behind Trixie and wrapped one leg affectionately around her while she used a wingtip to point at the mashed potato window, and then at the street map. Since when did her mom play with food? If Trixie tried that she'd be in so much trouble. That's only a last resort. It will make a lot of noise and you'd be in the middle of the street, not to mention it really hurts. Glass is hard when you run into it and sharp when you fall onto it. Don't even ask how you are supposed to get the shards out. I only did it once, and I'm still finding splinters. She shuddered. Seriously, you're way better off doing just about anything else, including just giving in, because sometimes escaping is more trouble than it's worth. Obviously talking your way out is the best. Right. Talk, okay, Trixie replied, puzzled. It wasn't exactly rare for her mom to talk about her past, but it was always pretty mundane stuff of stage performances. Where was this glass story all this time? On top of that, wasn't she supposed to be getting punished? Instead, she was getting this? Trixie was alright with that. She smiled and hugged her mom's furry leg while she listened to her. Exactly what to say and how to say it depends on the situation. It's not as simple as it always being right to try and reason with some pony. Sometimes it's much easier to bluster or get angry. Some will back down from confrontation if you are scary enough. Your father was downright terrifying if he wanted to be. Just a glance could send some pony packing. Sly's voice trailed off, and she looked down at Trixie, letting their eyes meet. Feathers tickled Trixie's face as Sly brushed her mane away. You have his eyes, you know. Trixie noticed that. Trixie smiled proudly, recalling how easily she'd made Starlight back off. Oh, you have? Sly smiled down at her. Good, but remember that it's not always the right approach to show strength. Sometimes, showing weakness will get you much better results. Trixie quirked her brow. Trixie does not believe you. Flitter does that all the time and it never gets her out of trouble. Well, that's not true, is it? Sly smirked. I hear a knight in shining armor quickly comes to the rescue and she acts like that, isn't that right? She booped Trixie on the nose. Trixie felt her cheeks catch fire and huffed. Trixie is not a knight. Sly folded her wings around Trixie. Of course you are, if you weren't wearing armor this would drive you crazy. With her wings, came a warmth and softness all around Trixie that had her practically purring. What would drive Tree? Arahaha. A sudden, ticklish, assault by fiendish hooves on her sides left Trixie laughing maniacally while she tried to escape her seat. Aha. No. Ha, ha, h. Oh, my mistake. Sly grinned as she let her hooves rest on Trixie's shoulders. I guess you weren't wearing armor after all. Well, I hope you remember that next time you get yourself into trouble, you can get hurt just as easily as every pony else. Trixie leaned back in her chair, gasping in relief as she could breathe properly again. That was dirty. Shouldn't you have just told Trixie not to get into trouble? Why? Are you going to listen? I sure never did, and it's starting to look like you're a chip off the old block. I'm saving a lot of time this way. She gave Trixie a tight hug before letting go and trotting back to her own seat. Besides, if you are going to get yourself into a mess anyway, I'd rather use the time to teach you how to get out of it. So, that's what that was about? Trixie pointed at the mashed potato map. Trixie appreciates it, but she still doesn't think pouting will get her out of trouble someday. You'd be surprised. Now finish your plate. I want that whole store eaten before bed. The playing cards fell to the floor once again, accompanied by a frustrated groan. For once, the groan wasn't from Trixie. Why won't this work? A red-faced Flitter stomped her hoof down on the tile floor of the Phyllis bathroom. It makes no sense. I can levitate a deck with ease, but I can't cut it in two. Trixie snickered while she listened to Flitter rant. It was cathartic. Finally she got to see what the timid thing looked like when she was actually frustrated past the breaking point. Trixie told you it was harder than it looked? You didn't really think Trixie would fail if it was easy? Well, no. Flitter gathered the cards back up in her hooves and cut the deck manually, then frowned. It's just this is so easy with our hooves, but with magic it's like trying to do it one-hooved. It can't be done. Trixie pushed open the stall door and made her way to the sink. A quick flash of magic got the tap running for her. It feels that way. Trixie's been trying forever and it just does not work. Trixie knows she saw the professor do it, but maybe it was some kind of illusion? She threw up her hooves in vexation, inadvertently throwing water around. Gah! If only Trixie had paid attention. She could have read his stupid magic and figured out if it was a trick. No, it wasn't a trick, Flitter said while she held the cards up with one hoof and used her magic to lift the top half of the deck. Remember that time you got your kitty mark? When? No, Trixie doesn't remember that at all, Trixie deadpanned while interrupting Flitter. What was that like? With a hurt look on her face, Flitter scowled at Trixie. Trixie wilted a little. Sorry, Trixie didn't mean to. She sighed. It's just that Trixie's not used to not making any progress at all. She's supposed to be good at this. It wasn't entirely true. She also had not made much progress during her detention, which had been equally frustrating, but a little progress was still something. Flitter's expression softened. It's okay. I was just going to say that it's not a trick, because I saw it before. Sunny Days was trying to compete with you, or join in. I'm not really sure which. But she was levitating 3 plates at the time, remember? Did this mean Sunny Days was above Trixie in magic ability? No. Trixie cracked the porcelain in the sink as she slammed her host down. Trixie is not worse at magic than freaking Sunny Days. She growled while giving herself a hateful glare in the mirror. How could she let this happen? Behind Trixie, the sound of cards hitting the tiles could be heard again. I didn't mean that. Jay just, she did it once. Oh, my, that looks, broken. Trixie wasn't paying attention to the damage. She was too busy with magically picking up the cards from the floor, or trying to. Although Trixie felt as though she ought to absolutely be able to handle 10 cards at once after hearing such horrible news, she did as terrible as ever. Each second item she picked up meant losing her grip on the first. It didn't take long for Trixie to lose patience with it again. Grah. If that airhead can do it, why can't Trixie? Susso, did your mom want to come? Huh? That question was so incredibly out of left field, that it actually left Trixie momentarily speechless. By the time she had made sense of it, the fire of impotent rage that had been burning inside her before had faded. Oh. To a dinner you mean? Yes, she wants to come. Good. Flitter looked nervous, but flashed a relieved smile. I was hoping you could come this Friday. I mean, if that's a good time for you. Trixie is pretty sure that we'll be fine. Do we need to bring anything? Trixie isn't sure how this kind of thing goes. She gathered up the cards one by one, then held the deck aloft in her magic. She still felt silly that she could hold the whole deck, but not 2 cards. No, I don't think so. Just, you two. Okay. Okay. They both stared at one another in silence for several long, increasingly awkward moments. Trixie cleared her throat. Thanks, for the invite. And, Trixie feels better. Showing a bright smile, Flitter nodded. No problem. So, what do you want to do next? The same thing we do every time, Flitter. Try to take over the world. Trixie rubbed her hooves together manically. Okay, said Flitter, without missing a beat, and after that? Well, Trixie supposes we'll go find Sunny Days and experiment on her. What kind of experiments? To find out how she manipulates multiple objects like that. Oh, but, couldn't we just, ask her? Trixie hummed as she considered the option, stroking her chin as she did. No. Okay,